Hi, Lawrence. Been like a whole month since we spoke and did a hangout, so it's good to hear your voice and see you. How you doing?
Yeah, I've just got back from my holidays, and fully enough, on one day the moon was up in the daytime, and it was barely visible. It was just like a bit of a fluffy cloud, but we had a full moon there in the latter part of the holiday, and the difference was amazing. It was sort of highly focused, and you could see the proper shape of it, but this wispy moon that you could see, it got less definition than a cloud, and it would change from that to this, you know, highly detailed moon in the space of a few hours, and it just begs the question: why don't you see it in so much detail, in the daytime?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was full last night, I think.
And the,
Fully full.
the size, the size is
Size is
changing as well.
different. Yep. And
The same day.
we had no wonder you were seeing it because we had quite a few days where we didn't see it at all here. I mean, it was not even in the sky. So at night or a day, anytime. So, it's unless you're watching timeanddate.com and ahead and knowing where it's going to be tracking, you really, it's just a crapshoot when you're going to see it, because it's definitely a pattern, but until you get that pattern in your head, when it's south of you or north of you or whatever, it's the same thing with the sun. I was making so many remarks a month or so ago about the equinox, and that the sun rose due east and set due west of my house, in South Florida. And it's interesting because now I'm watching it come up and set, and it's north of my house. And as it's almost perfect now for me to be able to see the ecliptic, I guess that 23.4 degree angle of its trajectory. And no wonder it looks like it's coming in north of me and setting north of me when it shouldn't be, because I'm above the Tropic of Cancer. But now it helps me understand better how the ecliptic works, because that's that circular arc thing that people think they see, that believe that, the sun, like the little flashlight sun that goes over around in a circle over the circle Earth map that so many believe in. But if you look at it from the vantage point of the ecliptic, which is an arc pattern, definitely, but the angle is set like that. So no wonder it seems like it comes in here and goes high in the sky and comes back down over here, north of you, even though you're north of the Tropic of Cancer. So each of these, as time goes by, each of these questions and mysteries that seem to not make sense, start to make a little more sense. So
Okay, well, let me just throw you a very quick curveball
all
before
right.
we.
I like curveballs.
Yeah, because I've spent a lot of time looking at Enoch while I was away. I downloaded the book onto a Kindle and was looking at the sun, the moon patterns, their movements and throughout the year and winds. I mean, if you look at the Bible, you've got the four corners of the earth and the circle of the earth. So it cannot be both. So why do you think the Bible has both? Is it possible that it's a circle that's slightly imperfect, that has four little indents that come out in to make corners?
Actually, what I just got finished talking about, the ecliptic does create a circle as it comes in from one side and goes out the other side. That trajectory, that ecliptic, is at an angle in the sky that creates what looks like the sun's going in a circle. You'd only see half the circle because from any one location, I guess I should extrapolate, but everyone says that everything's in there, so to speak, in the Bible, and that it is everything from an instruction manual for human behavior to a science manual for how things work to the idea of creation and history, and all of that is in there. There's a lot of deciphering to do. There's also a lot of cross-referencing to do, like circle and square. And many people who hear four corners of the earth, they're in the camp of the earth is square. And those that hear it's the circle of the earth are in the camp of the circular AE type map and model. And, we were talking about that briefly before we started the video. In review of watching the last couple of years, it certainly has come about that there are about as many camps and ideologies of what flat earth believers believe. The one thing they have in common is that the earth is not a globe and that the plane of the earth is flat and fixed. But once you start asking questions about, well, what more do you believe? Then you start to get everything, like I said, from the AE map and that model and the circling and the one pole in the center and that whole thing, all the way over to ideas like free energy has with, time and 4D and rectangular, and you get the square people, you have the infinite plane people, you have the dome fixed amount of space people. Then you got those ones who have seen the maps that got injected into the dialogue where it's like there's the circle flat earth so-called map, and then there's another ring of more circle, and then a bigger ring, and there's continents outside of that. And yet none of that has any relationship to any biblical scripture that I can find. You've got people who are looking at it from a biblical standpoint, arguing even, no, the Bible says this. No, the Bible says that. No, you're reading it wrong. And so, just like you said, where would we be without contention, without division? So you throw Enoch in there, which is yet another series of additional information. Then you've got people say, well, Enoch is not a canonized book of the Bible, so it shouldn't be accepted as part of the ideology or the religion. But yet once you read it or start to read it and decipher what Enoch is saying, then it starts to answer some questions that are left out of the other dialogue scripture. So what are you noticing about Enoch reading it that adds to or takes away from the visualization ideal that you have in your head of what you think flat earth is already?
Yeah, well, there is one part of Enoch which is very precise in what it is saying, and that's when it's talking about the movement of the sun throughout the seasons. And basically there's the 6 gates on the east and the 6 gates on the west, and they spend about 2 months in each going through each gate, probably in different parts of the gate. The gates are probably quite wide, so it'll be on towards one side, one part of the month, and towards the top end of the gate at the other end of the month. But it also gives great detail as to the lengths of the days. Now in Enoch, the longest day on Earth is 16 hours, and the shortest day is 8 hours. But that we both know that's not possible on the Earth, because some places, have a longest day of 24 hours, and some people have a longest day of 0 hours. It's just total darkness, and everywhere's different as to what their longest day is and their shortest day. So the only way that Enoch could be correct on that is if the sun was doing something completely different in the days of Enoch, because it simply doesn't work. If you go and search out, somewhere that's got a longest day of, say, 16 hours, which would be somewhere like Seattle, that's nearly 16 hours within a couple of minutes. And then you look at what their shortest day is. Their shortest day isn't 8 hours. It's not far, it's probably about 8.5 hours. I haven't got it in front of me at the moment, but there's nowhere that's got, exactly 8 hours and exactly 16 hours as their shortest and longest days. And it doesn't fit. That template does not fit on the Earth as we are now. So maybe the sun, apparently the sun was stopped at some point in the sky, and maybe things changed then, and we get this 23.4 or whatever effect that's making it different. Maybe everybody did see this. And I was coming back on the plane from the Canaries, and I was right over the engine, well, not literally over the engine, but looked out my window. The engine was there, and for about an hour I could see the sun was just about going down, and I could see this sunset over the engine for about an hour, which was about 500 miles, because that's how fast the plane was going. And it stayed exactly over the engine. If I was going 500 miles an hour in one direction, the sun should have been going back the other way, but it didn't. It was still there.
You mean lined up with a line of sight from the engine?
The plane was going north, because it's a north
right.
journey. So the sun was to the west, but the sun wasn't moving. It wasn't moving away. It wasn't moving to behind us. It was staying dead level with the plane. And then you see these phenomena like this hot potato of all these so-called flat earth narrative at the start. One of them is the sun always rises to eye level. Well, it doesn't. I spent the whole journey looking out, seeing what my eye level was, and where the sea meets the sky. I was looking down to that most of the time. It was very clear. There wasn't much cloud about. And then at other times, my eye level was not at the horizon where the sun meets the sky. It was actually up in the sky somewhere. So I think that's another falsity that's been put into the flat Earth narrative. The sun doesn't rise to eye level wherever you are. It's just not true. People can test this out for themselves. But I've had about 20 aeroplane flights over the past 2 or 3 years, and and I've been looking at where the sun is relative to my eye level, and also the horizon, so to speak. Sometimes you can't see the ground, but you can see a level of clouds and stuff above that. In fact, what was interesting to see when I came back was this, because the sun was going down, and the sun had virtually gone below the horizon, but you could still see it under the clouds, and then there was a shadow from the clouds going onto the ground beneath it. It's freaky stuff.
Yeah, but, the freaky stuff is the sun below the clouds. That's trippy to think about in itself.
Well, the sun's obviously above the clouds.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying from your angle of perspective.
Yeah.
So back to the gate thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you have a thought in your head that the gate is not a physical gate, not like we know, the garden gate, and that it would have quite a trajectory of width, I guess you would call it, as the sun travels north and south and back again. What would make up these gates? I mean, I guess I'm seeing in my head not more like a stargate versus a garden gate versus just a path where it would pass.
Yeah. That's and the other interesting thing.
But it also says it comes back through the north.
Yeah, I know, and when the sun gets to its extremities, it's actually in heaven, according to Enoch. It's shining. One pit says it's shining on the face of heaven. So how can it be shining on the face of heaven if heaven's above us? So in the Bible you've got the heaven above us, but in Enoch you've got you've got heaven to the east, the north, the south, and the west. You start reading through it, so that would mean that Earth was like a little enclave surrounded by heaven.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, that's when you bring in that idea of the Tesseract cube, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because, is our realm enclosed by these gates, by the firmament, by what's above and what's below? It would have to be, even to be a Tesseract cube. But at the same time, this is where once your mind starts to wander, then you start bringing in these other ideas of, for example, simulation theory, or time is, there's no such thing as time. Every moment is new. And everyone in everything in every moment is new again. So, it boggles the mind the more information you take in, and the more you try to cross-reference all of these sources of information, because you want to try to use these sources and find the connection, find the bridge between what this says, what you see, what you've heard, what you need to unknow or unlearn, and which is really hard. That's the hardest part, you can't go forward until you kick out some of the lies, a lot of the lies, but they just keep filtering back in. It's like trying to talk to someone who still believes in the globe, and you're 2 years into thinking about all these things, and they're at 0 years time. So they have no knowledge of all of that input that you've put in there, from all these different sources, and the time that you've thought about it all and correlated and confabulated, and no, confabulation's a lie, sorry. And so it's like, I don't know, you feel like a flat earth Einstein in a sense, compared to a 6th grade globe learn person. And you keep trying to say, listen, I used to also believe the way you believe. So I already know what you believe, because I was there too. But now I'm not there anymore. I'm way over here. And, in a Facebook thread arguing with one of these people, your life's not long enough to explain all of the thoughts and all of the, path you've taken to them in a brief, short period of time, all the while they're calling you an idiot and a fool. So, you cannot let that frustrate you, and you cannot be frustrated by reading, because somebody could just say easily, well, I'm done talking to you if you're going to talk about Enoch, because that's not a canonized book of the Bible, so I'm not even going to go there. It's a fantasy, a dream that he had, really good one. And maybe he was really smart, and maybe in his dream or his vision, he made all this up to explain a lot of the things that he saw that he couldn't explain any other way. But if he said, oh, I got a vision from God, or I took a trip with an angel, and he showed me it. So.
Yeah, but I mean, you see, what I'm reading Enoch, I was obviously going off at a few tangents here because I was trying to get my head around some things. Because we're supposed to have this divine force called God, who's he loves everybody, but he's also very vengeful, and he's got plans to, dish out the retribution for those who are, like there's a scorecard go, like John Mark Sargent talks about the scorecard about what we do on earth, and then, our souls go somewhere and there'll be a judgment day. But I mean, what sort of, loving God gets angry? So you're looking at Enoch and God gets angry. God's got emotions. I mean, we were made in the image of God, so it's, look the same as God. God has got emotions.
Well, if you knew your parents loved you, okay, they bore you into the world. They spent a lot of energy and time and training and everything else. They'd spank you on the butt when you did something wrong, but then they'd give you a hug and say, I love you. Try to do better next time. I never questioned whether my parents loved me, even though, I got whacked with, a hand or a paddle or a wet dish rag a few times by my mother. But I never questioned that they love me. I mean, you can watch a female lion with a cub, or even a big male lion, and little cubs, crawling all over him, chewing on his ear, bugging the hell out of him, and all he wants to do is lay there and take a nap. And you see him, literally swat him away, or bite, not hard enough to kill him, but bite him, just show him, hey, cut it out. You're bugging me. And because I didn't kill you, I love you. I still love you. So, but then there's also going to be people, Lawrence, who are going to argue that the God of the Old Testament is acted differently, behaved differently than the God of the New Testament post Jesus. So, there's that argument. Okay.
I mean, why would God do something that was deliberately harmful, premeditated? And I'm not talking about the time of Noah, but when you read about the winds in Enoch, this is in chapter 34, and it says, and out of one gate the winds they blow for good, but when they blow through the other two gates, it is for violence and torment on the earth, and they blow with force. So if God is controlling the winds, or his minions are in charge of sending the winds across the earth, why would they send one for violence and torment and others, for the force of good? Is it because that for this realm to function, there has to be opposites, and, for every bit of good, somebody's going to do some evil? Why would God send, winds with vengeance and violence and torment? Why would he do that? Premeditated.
Well, my only answer would be, and I know you're asking me, speculatively, and that's all I can do is speculate, because A, I'm not God, and B, I'm not sure the story is told properly. You can tell the same story in a positive and negative way and explain it to whoever two different ways and both make sense. So what if there were evil people who, like in Sodom and Gomorrah, as explained, supposedly the whole town, the whole city was immoral, unethical, wasn't approving of God and being good people and doing all kinds of deviant behavior. And what did he do? He wiped them out. There's stories of other cities and towns that he literally sent armies and soldiers, directed them to go and kill all those people. And then someone will say, well, those were the Canaanites, or those were the, giants. And then you understand, well, if the giants were the offspring of the Nephilim, blah, blah, then God didn't want them here. So we don't know who the people were that God was directing the vengeance towards.
But
it's kind of like there's good wasps and there's bad wasps. I mean, there's wasps that do beneficial things for nature, and then there's wasps that just do nothing but eat up everything or sting everybody or whatever it is. And
but it doesn't seem to me that killing people and stuff like that is the correct way. Is that because we have a go at our governments for sorting out their differences by having wars where people die, and God is doing exactly the same, sorting out the problems by killing people. Is he not?
Well, okay, so like I was just saying, what if those people were tainted people? We don't know who those people were, okay? Maybe they were people who were at some point going to do harmful things to the good people later on, and God already knew it. I don't know. I'm not making excuses. I'm just looking at it from a perspective of, if you don't know what the motivation is, and the only motivation you're told it is incorrect, then you're going to make a lot of assumptions based on false information from the start. So, I mean, if I go out in my yard and I have normal everyday ants that live in Florida, okay, and I know what ants do. I know that they're a positive thing for the ground and the cleaning up and the blah blah, okay. But then suddenly, fire ants invade my yard. Fire ants kill all the good ants, and they sting the crap out of you, and they tear up your ground and leave these big mounds, and you just got to stay away. What would be my response to that? I'm either gonna, get a shovel and dig them out and pour some crap in there to kill them, and hope that they don't reinfest, and so on and so forth. Do you get what I'm saying? So, yeah. There's good ants and there's bad ants. There's good and bad of everything. I guess you could ask the question, well, why did God create the bad in the first place? Well, how do we even know what the whole master plan was? Maybe this is an integral part of the plan. So, people would ask you all the time, if some tornado comes through Kansas and wipes out an entire town, causing millions of dollars in damage and people dying and so on, and then someone would say, why would God do this? What did we do to God to make him, send us this tornado? Why couldn't he stop that before that happened? Why couldn't he stop a train wreck before that happened? So you could ask yourself those kinds of questions till the cows come home and not be able to fully understand the big picture. So, this is a part and parcel of getting all this information from a bunch of different sources and trying to weed through it and know, someone would say, well, see, that's why that book wasn't canonized, because maybe it's speculation, or maybe it's, not written by an official, pre-approved writer of the Bible, of a book of the Bible. So it's the same thing with false flags or hoaxes or any of that stuff. You turn on the news and they, this is what happened and this is who did it and this is why it happened. And then 4 or 5 days later, you go, no, it's a new report, new information has come in. That was not true, but now you already think that, right? So this is directly connected to the information that people are believing and accumulating in flat Earth. Look at you and I, both of us, our eyes roll back into our head until we see the bottom of our brain every time we hear somebody talk about the ice wall that goes all the way around the Earth. Okay. There's people that, hell and be damned, no matter what you say, no matter how many proofs you show them, there's an ice wall that goes all the way around the Earth, the disk Earth, and that's that. So how are you going to convince somebody when it's bigger than cognitive dissonance? It's even more than that. It is, they have settled on the belief that they have, and any information that gets entered into the equation that doesn't fit into that, that's the myth, that's the false, that's the lie, not what they believe.
Yeah.
So
we were talking, we had a little private hangout a couple of weeks ago, Laurie, and we were talking about gold and why gold is so important. And we were looking at the Earth being a quarry, and I looked up deserts in the basis that deserts were the waste material from quarrying activity from some huge inhabitants of Earth at some point in the past. And I looked it up, and 1/3 of the total land masses on Earth are actually deserts. So it would appear that if that was the case, they were stopped by somebody from continuing the excavations and huge mining operation to remove the gold from the Earth. And actually in Enoch, it says that the gold is actually made within the Earth. So it would give the impression that there isn't a finite supply of the gold. Gold's being made within the Earth all the time, in the same way that oil is probably being replenished in the Earth by some force all the time, and you get these oil wells that are empty, and then the next thing you know, they're filled up with oil again from some unknown source. And we were talking about the money people of the Earth, the families possess more wealth than they could spend in 1,000 generations, and yet they still want more money. And the question is, what do they want the money for? Because money in itself is of no use to anybody as a piece of paper. So we were suggesting that maybe they want to buy up all the gold that is produced in the Earth. And that's why all these little towns you go into, certainly in the UK, we have these little shops that, with signs outside, we will buy your gold. But they don't sell gold. They just want to buy it in. And I'd be interested to know where all this gold ultimately ends up. Is it being shipped off the Earth, out of this realm, somewhere else? And who wants it? And why do they want it? And what do they do with it?
Yeah, that was actually an interesting conversation that we had, Lawrence, and we didn't get to finish it. And it was one of those brainstorming type things where, I speculated something and then you went, oh yeah. And then you speculated something, and it just kept, kind of just snowballing into more and more ideas. And that sort of came from some people have been continuing the idea of, I guess that the guy didn't start it, but he did have an impactful video, the No Forests on Flat Earth, about probably pretty close to a year ago. And Philip Druzhinin from Russia also has kind of kept on that path of the mining all over Earth. And there's been people doing videos of undersea going on Google Earth and looking at the edges of continents, and they'll look at this. This looks like this kind of scrape mining, and this looks like this kind of rotary mining. And so when, that No Force on Flat Earth video came out, and it was mostly based on the idea that these mesas look like stumps of giant old trees and so on and so forth. And then people went on farther with that, what they've always called basalt columns from ancient volcanoes. That's the way the magma hardened. And yet somebody else will say, yeah, but if you look at a microscope of the shape of the tubes in trees, they look the same, this hexagonal shape, on and on. For anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, and I would recommend that you go, and we have it on this channel, the Flat Earth Conspiracy channel. It's a re-upload of No Force on Flat Earth. And then there are other versions out there that people have reworked with an English-speaking, even though he spoke English, it was with a Russian accent, so on. So No Force on Flat Earth is what we're talking about. But also, we kind of extrapolated onto, look at these deserts. Is that the piles of what they dredged up and moved to the more interior areas of, the earth, the ground, land, pushed up out of the sea? And what were they looking for? If this in fact was mining, what the heck were they looking for, and what were they trying to find? That took us into a thought that I'd had before, of that I actually think oil is a byproduct of looking for something else. And because we all know that so many other sources of energy have been developed by humankind over the last several hundred years, that we literally could easily stop in 6 months using oil to create energy for cars and electricity for houses and so on and so forth. We all know how many alternative energy sources there are that could take the place of oil, especially for cars, even if it was alcohol. So, why do we continue, and why do they keep adding more money, subsidizing oil companies to keep drilling oil when we don't need it? Why are they still mining coal when we don't need it? And so, but the kind of mining that we do now is minuscule in comparison to the kind of mining that it would have been happening in this prior age of these giant mining machines. So, maybe the gold is what they're looking for, and maybe that's what they were looking for then, and maybe they were just ripping and tearing this place apart too much that God wiped them out, just like he wiped out Sodom and Gomorrah or anything else he didn't want happening on the earth. So, you're right. I mean, we did both compare that all over America, there's little strip malls with some shop in it that we buy gold cash for gold. And people, the worse the economy gets, the more people dig up what little gold they have left and go and cash it in so they can eat or pay their mortgage or whatever. And you're right, they don't sell any gold there. There are still places selling gold, but I don't even think, and I might be wrong, but I don't even think that all of the gold that we use for things like jewelry and ornamentation, number one, it's not pure gold. It's watered down, so to speak, with other mineral metals to make it harder or less gold content. And so what has happened to all the gold? I mean, the United States got taken off the gold standard. I couldn't tell you the year, but it was during President Nixon, so it was late 60s, early 70s. Our currency used to be backed by gold and silver, and we had gold in the what's the mint? The government mint. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, no.
And you know, it was a gold-backed currency. And then suddenly they told everyone, you have to turn in your gold. There was actually a collection of gold, you know, ingots and bars. Everybody, you know, you didn't have to give over your gold necklace, but a lot of people did. And then suddenly I don't think there's any gold-backed currency, fiat currency, anywhere in the world anymore. As a matter of fact, Muammar Gaddafi was going back to gold-backed currency, the dinar, and we know what happened to him. And the same thing with I think the BRICS wanted to go to gold, and now I think they've gone from that to the SDR. So where is all this gold that used to be backing everything? And it's still here, but is it still here? I mean, we're supposed to have the largest amount of gold in the United States in our care, but is it even there? Who's seen it? We've seen pictures of stacks of bars of gold at the mint, or you know, there's a picture that's been going around with the Queen of England in the vault with all the gold bars stacked up all over shelves, you know, 6 feet high. Is that real gold, or is that? I mean, it could be gold painted bricks for all we know. I mean, unless you could pick one up and weigh it and know that it's, you know, actual 24 karat or even 14 karat gold. So yeah, maybe we've been buying, maybe the elites have been buying their power, their place in the pyramid for all these years with gold. What else would they be mining? What else is of any value? Why is gold? Whatever began the gold being the thing for the most valuable asset? It wasn't necessarily based on its value. It was selected to be the exchange medium for paper currency. And initially it was in vaults. And every time somebody put some gold in the vault, they were given a receipt for that gold to go out and use as currency, so they didn't have to carry their gold coins around or keep them at home.
So maybe taxation is another word for, you know, a means of funding the purchase of all the gold there is. I mean, they could have us, you know, as slaves and realize that we are slaves, but maybe indirectly we're working on earth to raise taxes, which the elite collect to buy up all the gold there is, and they send that to their masters. That would seem to make sense, especially when you mentioned that, I think it was the 1930s, wasn't it, when, you know, everybody had to surrender their gold in exchange for dollars. You couldn't actually hold gold anymore. I mean, why would they want to collect all the gold anyway? What was so important about it?
Well,
I mean,
especially if they're going to turn around and pass legal tender laws that is nothing but a law that dictates that um, you have to accept these pieces of paper as legal tender. They aren't backed by anything anymore. You know, they're certainly not supported by an equal value amount of gold sitting somewhere. They're just paper dollars with a law that says you have to accept them as legal tender.
yeah, but
And
they
for
could have done
anybody
that
who doesn't
anyway.
understand what that means, go do some research. Just Google legal tender laws, and every large country has them. It's all the way back to Greece and Rome. They passed legal tender laws that
Yeah,
said you have to accept these receipts as legal tender, and if everyone agrees, which if it's a law you have to, um, if if everyone agrees, then that is the currency, even though it's fiat, even though it isn't backed by anything of any other intrinsic value. It's all a false system that everybody has to live under because you have to agree because there's a law about it.
yeah. But they could have done that anyway, couldn't they? They could have brought in the money system. They didn't need, unless there's some other motive, they didn't need to physically to collect the actual real gold off the people, but they did. So, you know, and
Well,
when you buy it
again,
on that,
what does that say to you? Hoarding gold, if it is not the asset that is backing the currency, then what other good is it? Right? I mean, what is it good for? Filling your teeth? I mean, how much gold do you need all across the world for filling everybody's teeth? Not that much. I mean, that's really an upcharge to get a gold filling versus an amalgam or whatever else. And so there is some other force in play here that is creating this false value for gold or for silver. And if somebody would be arguing, well, gold is this perfect thing for the conduction of electricity, or they use it all the time in computers and phones and so on. That amount is minuscule in comparison to the overall amount of gold on Earth. And there's gold mines still, veins of gold. That's another thing. That word, veins of gold. Why did they associate that word with a collection spot of gold? Why'd they use the word vein? Because it looks like a vein. Only when you dig it up, only when you expose it does it look like a vein. If you find the vein in like a slice, okay. And so, yeah, I mean, it takes your mind into a place. If you are the kind of person who has an imagination, it takes your mind into a place. Well, maybe, we've been buying our safety, or buying our freedom, or buying off those who were here before, who were mining, to keep them from coming back. Maybe we have to supply them with a certain amount of gold every year.
Yeah, and the veins of gold. You talk about veins. You compare it to the body. You're talking about a liquid. And I did look up some stuff on gold, and if you get some gold leaf and you put it in the palm of your hand, it will actually melt in your hand to a liquid, which is pretty amazing. I didn't think gold would melt at body temperature, but apparently, if it's gold leaf, it'll melt in your hand. I don't think there's many other metals that will do that.
Well, so back to the oil thing. Okay, there was that whole story for a long time about oil being limited, and they still use the term fossil fuels, like, this all came from the bones of all the billions of dead dinosaurs that used to be here. And that's why it's limited, because they're not making dinosaurs anymore. And then there was that whole peak oil. It's all you heard about, maybe like the 80s and the 90s. Peak oil, that, we're at the point now where it's downhill from here, and there won't be any new oil being made yet. All of a sudden now, you don't hear about peak oil anymore. And every time you turn around, there's a giant new oil reserve found under this ocean or under this, country or whatever, just constantly hearing about, new oil reserves found, millions of barrels. And okay, well, can you guys just stick to a story? Because the story I've heard for a long time, I mean, I lived through the 70s with and I'm sure you did too, where oil shortages back when Jimmy Carter was president, and price of gasoline went out the roof, and people were lined up in their cars at the filling stations to, get the little bit that they could get when the oil or gas tanker came and brought new gas. Back during the war, World War II, people had to get rationing for gasoline because, we need it for the war. But now, I mean, here we are in 2017, and the other day I posted on my Facebook, I found this pretty cool idea of this. It's called this, it's a solar flower. That's not the exact name of it, but you can look it up, solar flower, and you'll see what I'm talking about. That has been invented, that, you put it in your backyard, costs about $10,000. It's a standalone little tower with, looks like a big sunflower of solar panels, and it opens up like a fan, like a flower. And as the sun goes around across the sky, it follows it just like a sunflower head does, and collects solar all day long. Newer version than flat solar panels on your roof that, only are going to face that one angle, that one direction, and collect only so much amount of direct solar power. This thing has backup batteries that preserve, collect, store the extra energy that's created from this big flower. And then at the end of the day, the thing folds up and lays down and goes in its little capsule and comes back out again tomorrow. And I'm thinking, why are we still stringing lines up all over the place and having power companies and whatever, nuclear power plants and all this other crap that we already know is bad? Yet all of those energy sources are being subsidized by governments to produce, and everybody has to be on this grid and get it from that source. I mean, you only ever usually have one power company per any county or metropolitan area. Instead, everybody, naturally, your house, any new house built comes with one of these solar flower things, and it provides enough power to take care of any house, normal size house. Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we subsidizing that if we're going to be subsidizing stuff? And no, we got to keep drilling oil wells, and we got to keep subsidizing big oil companies, and we got to keep cars on oil, when it's already been proven time and time again that it's a terrible carbon footprint problem. So I think oil is the byproduct, just like they put fluoride in the water. I think fluoride is a byproduct of what is it, phosphorus mining? And yet they go and put it in the water and made up some bullshit about how it helps fight cavities. Yet all it does is make you brain dead. So whatever story they come up with for why we're doing what we're doing, you got to go back to the reason. Ouch! You got to go back to the reason of the story, and say, is the reason for the story real? Is that, I mean, is that the real story, or is that the bullshit lie that supports the cause for why they're doing whatever they're doing?
Yeah, I know. So back to Flat Earth a little bit. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I watched some of the other channels just to see what's coming out, and some of them have Hangouts and let people come in for a chat. You know, even Globers, and the Globers always come in and debunk the false model. And the surprising thing is that these channels, they don't come back and say, well, you're debunking the false model. They just get angry about it and say that they're a bunch of arseholes. Whereas we would say, well, you're debunking the false model, debunk this one, but they don't.
Right.
And that's a common theme. And obviously you found that Facebook page the other day where they were, you know, it was all Globers, and the page is dedicated to debunking the flat Earth, but debunking the false model of the flat Earth, and that seems,
And you know what's really shocking to them is when you go on one of those threads or one of those groups, or just some person who's, promoting the flat Earth, and that's the picture, that's the model that they put up there, the AE model, or the one with the snow globe dome over the top, or whatever, but the circular model. And the Globers come in and start, beating hell out of it. And then you go, you're right. That is false. That is wrong. And I'm still a flat earther. And you can just, there's like a pause in the action of the heated thread. Everybody's typing and, you're an idiot, you're stupid. And then you can almost hear the brakes screech when you say, no, you're exactly right. There are southern star trails, or you're right. It is too far for the continents to be apart on that map. Those plane flights don't take that long. Those cities aren't that far apart. And you're right. The planes don't go faster in the southern hemisphere on that map than they do, in real life. And you can just go on and on. No. There's no ice wall. When they say something about, well, how do you keep from falling off the edge? The classic one of all time. And then somebody always says, oh, because there's an ice wall all the way around the outside. And there isn't. How do you show me proof of an ice wall all the way around the outside? And they start treating you like a Glober. And you're no. I'm a flat earther, and I don't believe that crap. Okay. And it's starting to sort of jog this thing a little bit. If it's certainly not going to, as long as those who are supporting the AE map and model are going to invite Globers on to annihilate them with proofs, and then just get mad. What good is that? Just like, we were talking before, why are all these Globers so mad? Not all of them, but the ones that come into flat earth groups or flat earth threads, and they're vehement. You're stupid, you're crazy, you're in a cult, you don't know what you're talking about. And you say, why are you wasting your time on this? Don't you have something better to do than spend all day or hours? I'm on threads sometimes that last over days. Sorry, good night, got to go to bed. Well, I'll see what you comment tomorrow. And then you get a notification, so-and-so commented, and you go back and you go, no, that's not. And then this argument goes on for days. And I'm thinking, I have a vested interest as a flat earther to defend my understanding, not my belief system, but my understanding. Why do you have the same defense for the globe when everybody else believes in the globe already? Have you, why does this make you angry that someone chooses to believe that the earth is flat based on research? So because now in review of the past couple of years. When I first got involved in looking into flat Earth, everybody believed this model, this circle model, blah, 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 Robotham, blah, 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 Gleason, blah, 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 all of it, okay? And here's how the sun goes around and the moon goes around, and this is why only this much of the Earth is lit, while the rest of it is night. And as this thing moves in or out, not north and south, but in or out of these circles, that is the seasons. And it all sounds good until you start to break it down. And just like I've said before, when you have a hypothesis, a hypothesis is a collection of facts put together that go together, that explain something, a theory, a phenomenon, an idea, whatever, okay? These facts weren't put together before by anybody, okay? So you put these facts together, and these facts culminate in this idea, this hypothesis. But when someone introduces to you something that doesn't fit that hypothesis or destroys, your analysis of what all this added up to in your head, then what do? You argue, or do you say, you know what, you're right, I hadn't considered that, or I did not know about that, and now I have to change the outcome of my thinking, which is the hypothesis. You can't just say, no, you're wrong. You're not thinking the way I'm thinking, whatever. It's this thing threw a monkey wrench in your hypothesis. So you have no alternative, unless you're just obstinate, and you have to change the outcome of your collection of data.
Yeah, that's the long and the short of it, that the false model was set up so that the Globers could come and debunk it and make a nonsense of it. And it's very sad that these other so-called flat Earth channels, apart from us and maybe one or two others, they're just not addressing the problem. And that, I think what we've got now in flat Earth, it's a stagnant pool of channels, which they're just stirring up the same water, the same mucky pool, but no progress is being made.
No, only progress is being made is in their minds. In their minds, what they're doing is they're doing the same thing the globe believers, instigators did. They're creating reverse engineered ad hoc theories to support why this doesn't seem to work. Like, for example, these continents are too far apart. These plane flights couldn't, get from here to there in the amount of time, blah, blah. Oh, that's because the planes go faster. Okay, let me go investigate. You go and you go to Qantas. What's the fastest flying plane you have? It goes 500 miles an hour. Okay, well, at 500 miles an hour, this is not supersonic speed. You can't get from here to here in the amount of time that they tell you these flights last, okay, or take. And then what do? They say, oh, well, they're lying about the time of the flight. Hello, you think everybody in the whole flight is sleeping and they all woke up and go, oh my God, what time is it? Oh, we got all the way from here to there, and and while they were sleeping, they went and set all their clocks back. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You can't just keep coming up with these dreamy excuses for why something doesn't work. Like I said, anytime you throw a monkey wrench in there, you have to reevaluate your hypothesis or your theory. Of course, the term theory is so watered down now that someone's imaginative idea about something, they call it a theory. Oh, I have a theory. I have a theory. No, it's not a theory. That's not how you even arrive at a theory. That's your imagination. Okay, that's not a theory. You could prove the theory if you imagine something Then you have to go out and collect the data and prove your imaginative idea is in fact true. Okay. And so then it goes from being a theory to a fact. But you can't just keep adding on layers of mythology onto what already was mythological, and you know, become really good at talking your little story, like Eric Dubé has done. I mean, every time I hear him talk in all those old videos, I don't know if he still talks about it because I don't listen to him anymore, but in all of his early videos, you know, 200 proofs that the earth is flat, blah, 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 and then water doesn't fall off because there's an ice wall surrounding the outside. And that's when my record scratches, you know, what are you, ice wall? You're still, you know, you talked about it then, you have never backed off of that. And you yet to this day have zero proof that there is a mile-high ice wall all the way around the flat Earth circle.
Yeah, I know, and they're still talking about, you know, if you go to Antarctica, you're going to get intercepted by the.
Oh, sure, the army's going to blow you right out of the water, and you know, we've already gone through every one of these things. You and I, over the last 2 years, this is, you know, going back to the review idea again. We systematically approached every one of these ideas that is called the flat earth dogma, okay? The thing that people repeat without ever having checked into it themselves. They just heard it from some guru style flat earther and it sounded really smooth. And if you listen to the video enough times, you can repeat exactly what they said, just like you're, you know, learning the lines of a movie, and be able to, you know, roll it out there until someone who hears it for the first time, it rattles their brain, their eyes roll back in their head and they go, what? What are you talking about? And of course, they're not going to investigate flat earth further because the thing they heard that was so bizarre and sounded like science fiction stopped them. And so, you know, all of these issues that we took on, why did we do it? Did we do it because we were just being obstinate? No, we challenged it to either prove it's true or to debunk it and say, we got to stop talking. We got to stop repeating that crap. Okay. And because it's mythological crap, just like Santa Claus, just like, you know, the Easter Bunny, Sandman, it's all mythological crap. You know, I know for a fact when I was a child, I would lay in bed at night trying to stay awake to see when the Sandman came. Because my dad was a storyteller and he would tell you about the Sandman and you're getting very tired, and he would take his fingers and he would sprinkle them over your face like this and you're laying in your little bed, and pretty soon your eyes would get really scratchy, and because you're tired and that your eyes dry out when you're tired, and of course it gets scratchy, but it's also the, you know, imagination in your head going, oh God, yeah, my eyes are getting scratchy because, you know, the Sandman just dribbled sand in my eyes. And pretty soon you'd be asleep and you go, damn it, another night went by and I didn't get to actually see the Sandman. I'm going to stay awake some night, all night long. I'm going to see that bastard because, you know, it's got to be or it's not real.
Yeah. So, I mean, then you've got the, you know, people say, well, what is your best proof that the earth is flat? For me, it is still, it's obviously that, you know, it would be obvious if we lived on a sphere, and they still come up with the old chestnut saying, yeah, but the earth is so big that you couldn't tell. Well, yes, you couldn't tell the curvature, but the elevation rise and falls would still be there if you know, if we were on a sphere. You know, most of the earth would be uninhabitable because we could not stand up.
Right.
You know, we'd have to have, you know, places carved into the surface of the earth, and, you know, buildings carved into the face of the earth to actually live there.
But you know what,
and this,
Lawrence, it's really interesting because when did you first say that about the elevation, that if you truly lived on a globe, if you truly lived on this globe, these people who live right here at the equator would be unable to stand up straight because this is falling off as they come down, right? Okay.
that was over a
And
year ago.
yes,
We
about a
covered
year
it.
ago.
We covered it, in the late, in the first few months of the show, we touched upon it.
Right.
You know,
And
so
everybody was like, oh my God, Lawrence has gone too far now. This is just crazy talk. It wouldn't be like that because on a ball, everywhere is up. Everywhere is up. No matter how the ball is in space, everybody's standing up. No, they always show you why, you can't say that this is the North Pole, okay, if it's not always north. So this is the top. And I don't care about the spinning and all that stuff, but the earth is supposed to be spinning itself and then also spinning around the sun, okay? Rotating and going around the sun, okay? So you get these two actions. But regardless, you can't have, well, the seasons happen because as this face is this side of the sun, and then 6 months later it's over here on this side of the sun, okay? And that's what makes the season. That ball didn't spin around like this. It only spun around like this, okay? That's why they got that axis thing going on, and the North Pole going on, and the South Pole going on, all right? And so don't tell me that it is about, everywhere is up in space. Okay, so you're into this gravity then, because you got to have that for everybody to be on here. You got to have that. And you take away the gravity, everywhere is not up. Okay, everybody's head isn't pointing out from this surface. All these buildings aren't pointing out. And so, because they would fall off, and so with the water and everything else. So now you're believing in gravity, but you don't believe in elevation change. These guys down here. So as time's gone by over the last year, we have gone less and less from being made fun of to once it clicks in somebody's head. Oh, I get that now. Okay, now all of a sudden we got a convert to. If this was the globe you lived on, these guys right here would be having to carve little edges in here so they could stand upright, or else have cleats on their feet or hang by ropes or something, and nobody's down here. Plus, what happens to all the water? All the water falls off the bottom. There's too many problems with it once you start to get your mind around that you not only have a ball, but you have an elevation drop as you go down the side. And there is only one top. This is the top. This is the only place anybody could be living, all around up here.
Yeah, and a big part of the psyop was to have all these flat earthers, slowly but surely doing more and more experiments looking for non-existent curvature, but none of them were looking for the more obvious rise and fall in elevation.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, yourself, out of 100 memes that were made or have been made, out of 100 videos that have been made, what is the percentage of them that are all about where's the curvature? 90% of them are about chasing curvature. Okay. And so for those of you who have never thought about this, okay, whether you're a globe earther or a flat earther, just anybody, okay, if this is where you lived and you are on this little line right here, okay, this little sewed line, all right, this right here is always going to be the top, and this is always going to be the bottom. And regardless of spin, These guys hanging out down here or further got a problem living on this angle of the side of the hill. It's a hill, okay? You're going down the hill because you cannot have measurement of spherical trigonometry curvature and argue that 8 inches per mile squared. There's charts all over the place, and even the Globers know it now. They know the mantra, the 8 inches per mile squared, because if you don't square it, you got a slope. There's your slope. The slope is the problem, okay? Fixate on the slope, on the drop in elevation. You missed the part about the slope. It's a ball.
Yeah.
You know, so
like
we're not being smart asses by saying, you know, why don't you see this? Because we didn't see it at the beginning. And even when Lawrence first said it to me, I mean, it just dawned on him. He is not some genius that figured this out. It dawned on him. If this is the way it is, then this is a problem, okay? And while all you guys are out there fighting about measuring curvature of a few inches per squared mile, you should be doing experiments of measuring the fall in elevation from this city, Detroit to Sarasota. What would be the fall in elevation? And so if we got mathematicians out there, even if you're concerned about everywhere is up, that issue still is on the table. There's a fall in elevation, okay? And there's a reverse fall in elevation down here. Nobody would be down. Boats fall off. You know, can you imagine a boat? I mean, come on. Everybody's already been laughing about it. Oh, meanwhile, down under in Australia, and they show an upside down picture of a plane landing in an airport upside down. And then it dawns on you, you're right. You would be flying upside down. Why is it okay that you realize that? You would be flying upside down. So then everywhere isn't up, is it? You can't have it both ways. You can't say everywhere's up and argue about our elevation issue. And then at the same time, ha, 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 funny meme about the mean, or I've seen the one where it's got the big globe and it's got a level, a spirit level against the side of it right here, and it says, meanwhile, at the equator, and the spirit level shows level this way, sideways, okay? If that's funny to you, then you should be able to get what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So back to the camps and back to the division and back to all the, multi-beliefs. I'm okay with that as long as everybody is in the act of researching their understanding. Okay. I will entertain anybody's map or model as long as you're actively pursuing the backup research and the proof to show that this is how flat Earth is. But when you just get some imaginary map, like that one that, popped up out of nowhere in the Hawaii museum or library or something with all of these outer continents on it, on top of the outer ring of the flat Earth circle. Do you know what is there any citation on this thing? Is there any background history on who made it, where it came from? Oh no, it's 10,000 years old and came from China. Okay, who told you that? Where did that come from? Show me the citation for this information, because it sounded good and somebody made it up and you just repeated it, and then it got repeated enough many times, and just like the other dogma, like Santa Claus.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the easiest experiment is, take a compass and see where north is. It should be uphill if you're on a globe. See where south is, it should be downhill. If you're traveling a long distance south, then You don't need to put any gas in your car because all you do is take your handbrake off and it's downhill all the way. That's how it would really be. But we know
now, if you're on a globe, you believe, well, how does north work on the compass? Okay. Is it pointing anti-south? Is north actually in the center of the earth? And so the compass is pointing to the center boiling core. How does that work? Because it always points north, and that keeps you going up the globe, right? Up the globe to the top. That's north. So how can everywhere be up if that's north? That's a definitive point. Same thing with Polaris, okay? Polaris is called the North Star. Why? Because it's the star that is the most fixed point star above where? The North Pole. The north is up.
And the endless arguments about star trails, that's just another red herring to divert. There's no even to even cover that, because the actual elevations is all you need.
Well, I mean, and even if you do want to cover star trails, there are actual real collected photos and videos of star trails. Do you know how you take them? People go, oh, that's all Photoshop manipulated. Then why do they look exactly like the ones in the north? Or because, they're manipulating it in Photoshop. You just said the same thing a different way, okay? Here's how star trails are taken. They're a series of time-lapse photographs over 24-hour period. In order to make a full circle, it would have to be over 24 hours, not just 12, right? There are 24 hours of darkness in the southern pole during the winter there, right? Which is the summer in the north, the opposite. And then you take all those stills and you do just like you do with the flip book, where you put a little picture and you progress the picture in the corner of the flip book. Okay. And then you flip the flip book and the little character dances or does something or whatever and moves because you progressed each one of those pictures. That's how star trails are made. Yes, they're done on a computer for speed, and there's programs to do it, but they're not making up the photographs that are the basis of what the data you put into the application to create the star trail video or the star trail fixed picture. So it's another one of the, it's all Photoshop. Just like now, everything's fake. No, it's fake news. I don't like the way that sounds. So that's fake news. No, this is a real one. This is true. And so, sorry, you can't use fake news for everything now, because then everything is fake. And there's people that believe every damn thing is fake until you go outside and see it with your own eyes. That's not fake.
Yeah, and one thing I don't understand, Laurie, maybe you can shed some light on this. Why they have to mess about with the calendars and have leap years and things like that. I mean, the movement of the sun is the same every year. So why don't they just add a few minutes to each day and have all the years the same?
I don't know why they can't figure out. I mean, we have computers that can figure something out to the micromillisecond or the trillionth of a millisecond or something nowadays. You should be able to divide it up within a second of divided up out of 364 point however many days in a year there are. Why do some months have 28 days and others 31? Why do you have to do the leap year? Add a day. None of us are in control of the manipulation of all of this information. we just wake up one day and go, oh yeah, we forgot to set the clocks back. Oh yeah, this is the year where we got 29 days in February, not 28. And there's people who will give you some, bullshit answer as to why that we got to do it like that. Why are we still doing it like that? Why is the United States still not on the metric system when they signed a metric treaty years and years ago and have a metric weight that is the same as the metric weight, in every other country that's used to gauge weight. But yet we're not on the metric. But yet we actually are on the metric because it's on the metric converted back to whatever they call non-metric. I don't even forget what they call it anymore. But it starts out as metric and then gets converted to, Western or US weights and measures. It's just all of it's just manipulated. Is it any wonder that you have all these different flat earthers believe in all kinds of different things? Because someone delivers the message to them and they go, you know what, that sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty logical. Or I like the way that resonates with me. That's my favorite one. That really resonates with me. And like, what does that even mean? Resonates with you. It made your head go ding, 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 and you heard a bell and it go, there's the truth. It resonates. I don't know. So, am I making fun of people that say that? In a way, yes. But I'm saying it in a way that it's like, I question, what does that even mean? I mean, if I hear a song that I really like, and I've never heard it before, but I automatically know I'm really going to like this song and I'm going to like it for a long time because what? It resonates with me. Okay. That is a feeling. That is not logic.
Yeah. And of course,
So,
meanwhile, we've got the same old crew. They're active as ever, putting out bullshit hangouts week in, week out. Same old stuff, talking about any old shit. I know we talk about any old shit sometimes, but it's different shit at least.
Yeah.
They're still doing it. They've got their conference coming up in November with everybody who's attending pushing a false model. And there's no opposition.
And I haven't heard a whole lot more about that lately. Have you, Lawrence? I mean, shouldn't they be really hyping? Shouldn't they be really hyping that right about now to get that thing sold out, or is it already sold out? And that's why they're not talking about it. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but every big event that I've ever cared about, whether it's a concert or an election or a birthday, something that's coming up on a date, every once in a while, you got to like inject it with a little hype again. And I haven't really been hearing too much about that, but I don't watch a lot of those. I don't watch any of those guys' videos until I hear the sound of them saying, we've changed our minds. We've come to understand that this model is this thing that we've been believing in and that we've been pushing on everybody else is wrong. And I don't even want to hear a mea culpa or I'm sorry or anything. I don't care. I don't care about that at all. I don't want anybody to say, you were right. Doesn't matter to me at all. I don't know if it matters to you, Lawrence, but that's not even the point. The point of it is, it's time to get off that and move forward, because every time I do watch something like, somebody sends me a clip of Joe Rogan interviewing somebody in Flat Earth, or Bill Maher, or anybody else who does talk shows interviewing somebody about Flat Earth, and they just start asking these ha ha ha, and the canned laughter in the background. Ha ha ha. What are these guys, idiots? What is this about this, snow globe thing over the top. And then sure enough, they'll flash a picture of, you know, Yahweh's terrarium, or the turtle with the snow globe on its back, worse yet. And then it's humiliating. And so why is it humiliating when I'm a flat earther? Because it's wrong. I'm just as humiliated when I watch a NASA video. Hey, look here, we're on Mars. I know you're not freaking on Mars. You're humiliating yourself, and you're humiliating those who believe you. I feel sorry for all those people out there who are just sucking all that up and being humiliated. So it's the same thing to me. Every time I'm watching a video and somebody's talking about a proof that has nothing to do with that map or that model, and you know, they're making a good case and they're sounding really intelligent and they're showing some really good idea that has nothing to do with the map and the model, and then bingo, right at the end or somewhere in the middle, boom, there it is. And it just went, yeah, that was the record scratch, you know. Oh man, did you just lose me? And that's sad, because now I can't share that good information in good, you know, in good conscience, because I know that repetition brainwashes people. And the more time they see that stupid picture, stupid map and model, that's what they relate is supposed to be what all flat earthers believe. And they don't. I don't. You don't. A whole lot of more people don't. But we're the fringe. Why is that? Why should we be the fringe when we've put in more time on, you know, investigating and questioning? Question everything. Isn't that the mantra of a truther? Question everything, even what you already believe, because you already believed you lived on a globe and now you don't. Why? Because you questioned it.
Yeah, and then you start. So if we turn the clock back and you look at all the flat Earth facts, you know, the
flat Earth proofs
story at the start. I mean, how many of those are actually true? Probably not many. You know, there's probably more lies in that than there is with the globe.
Well, don't you also wonder, Lawrence? You know, I'm as nostalgic as the next person. You know, I remember the good old days, and you know, I really do believe things were better back in the day compared to what they are now. And I think everyone who's older believes the same thing, thinks the same thing. And the people who are older than me, almost dead, believe the same thing, that things were better then. I don't even care if you throw in the Great Depression and World War II and all of that. What they call better was the way people treat each other in general, morals, ethics, values, you know, simpler times. You didn't have all the stress of all, you know, standing around with this thing in front of you all day long. And so being nostalgic is one thing, okay? And it's almost like they're nostalgic for this guy Robotham. Why? Because he's been painted as this renegade guy who fought the good fight, was, you know, started a movement, which is bullshit in itself. There's always been flat earthers as long as mankind's been around. There's always been people who believed it was flat and never stopped, no matter what you tried to teach them. But what is the attraction to this Robotham dogma and mythology? Is it because Eric Dubé said his name so many times, or is it because, you know, he was before all of the lies of technology that we have today, and so therefore he's more to be trusted? Because, I mean, when you break it down, every one of the dogmatic beliefs that flat earthers use as flat earth proofs come from originally Robotham or the Flat Earth Society or the Zetetic branch of those guys back then. Is it nostalgia?
Yeah, and why can't all these other flat earthers, the ones that have become flat earthers over the past few years, they will all tell you that the Flat Earth Society is controlled opposition, but the Flat Earth Society has got the same model as you.
Yes, exactly. The only difference is their explanation. Basically, from what I can find, the only difference is their explanation for how gravity works by the rising up, constant rising up of the surface to make up for why things are held down. Why the hell do you even need that if it's flat and density and buoyancy takes care of everything that gravity is supposed to be about? What do you need this, excelling up forward? And then you add in the concave people. Okay, there is more of those than a lot of people, flat earthers, really know about. Okay, and then you got this resurgence of hollow earth, where there's another guy that is the ultimate nostalgia guru of flat earth, and that's Admiral Byrd. I mean, how many times you hear about Admiral Byrd? And whatever it was, the hell he was talking about hollow earth in his diary and his writings. A, how do you even know he wrote that crap? And B, has anybody else written about it or found it since Byrd talked about it and brought it up? And where is it now? We've explored everywhere on Earth for the most part. Why would they hide that? Why would they hide the hollow earth? Why would they hide this big hole? There's another thing. How do you have a big hole at the top of this earth, that's hollow? Let's go back to the elevation thing. How do those people, what do they got hollowed out inside here, and they got little caverns off to the side of the hollow where they live, or what keeps them from falling out the other end at the bottom? There's a whole bunch of questions that go with that because somebody made a photograph that looks old and grainy and is this perfect circle that looks like a what do you call those things? Whirlpool going down. Okay. How does that exist on this planet, this globe, that's supposed to have a hollow core, a solid core in the middle of it, if molten still millions of years later, boiling molten metal, magnetized, boiling molten metal. And we all know that magnets don't work anymore when they get to be beyond a certain temperature. Everything is so backwards. And so when someone makes fun of a flat earther and it's like, oh, wait, really? And have you never even questioned that molten core thing, that gravity and magnets but that's where magma comes from. That's where volcanoes come from, as it erupts up out of there. Well, what replenishes it? Does something sink in to take its place? Because, there's only so much earth and we're not making new. The globe's still the same size it was all the time since they created it. I don't know. But, it's more, they don't like the Pac-Man idea, but they believe it's infinite. There's another one. No, that Pac-Man thing, we can't go there. That's really bogus and stupid. Well, we're not even you really don't think we're talking about Pac-Man, really. We're talking about time. Okay. But let's just go with the Pac-Man idea for now. You don't believe Pac-Man, but you believe there's more land out there and it's infinite. Where is it? And how does that work? How does infinite work? Okay, infinite would be Pac-Man. They're kind of the same thing, really.
Yeah, I'm amazed that the concave earthers have got anybody who buys into that, because if it was a concave earth, which is basically living on the inside of a sphere, all the water, there'd be just one ocean in the middle, right in the bottom where all the water collected. And again, you're still going to have huge rises and falls in elevation.
In elevation, right.
Which are there. But they say to Lord Stephen Christ, show me the curvature again. You know, but it should be show me the rise and fall in elevation.
Right.
But they don't.
Well, again, Lord Stephen Christ is a guru. He's somebody people follow. Might as well be, you know, what was the guy, Jones down in Guyana, or the guy from Waco, or any of these other gurus. They talk a good talk. They're very flamboyant. They're very, you know, intense people. And, you know, he's out there all the time arguing with everybody about what they believe, yet he's got zero proofs of his beliefs when you break it down to the same questions about living on the inside of a curve versus living on the outside of the curve. And I mean, I've seen the videos, you know, they walking up concave. Come on, really? So, but there's people who believe that. Because why? Because they never questioned the big picture of this belief system, because they were captivated. Something resonated with them when they saw it, when they listened to Stephen, the guru, and you know, a guy who paints himself as an outsider, a guy who paints himself as a renegade, so on and so on. And so he attracts people who, you know, are attracted to that. And so, you know, there's been quite a few times over the last 2 years where we've taken breaks and I've said, you know what, I'm done. I don't even think I can do this anymore. I mean, I can't argue with people anymore. But then to carry on, because it's not about that. It's about the research. It's about, you know, moving forward and keeping investigating for whose purpose, for whose reason, my own, not to prove anything to anybody else. But by God, once you put something out there and their only method of tearing it apart is you're stupid, you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about. Okay, that's cool, but prove me wrong. That's on you. That's not on me. I came up with it, or Lawrence came up with it, or somebody else came up with it. Prove them wrong. Realistically. And if you can't, then just shut the hell up or listen, one or the other. And either sooner or later you prove us wrong. You find something definitive that tears a hole in what we've said. But that's not even really what it's about. It's about the investigation process. It's about asking the questions. And, you know, I get a kick out of the way you think. You get a kick out of the way I think. And the combination of the way we think is different, yet it manages somehow to go together. We've never met each other in our lives yet. I don't know what Lawrence had for dinner tonight. You know, I don't know. I haven't seen Finn lately. How's Finn doing?
He's down there. He's snoozing.
See? So, you know, we're not connected to where we know everything about each other. And there's actually people out there who ask me, you know, blah, 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 your husband. I'm going, I don't have a husband. Well, you know, that guy you're on the videos with. What? That's not my husband. He lives in UK. Even if we're not married. We're friends, scientific minded cohorts who are working together to investigate things. We just so happen to be able to communicate with each other well enough that we don't have to waste a lot of time explaining. You know, you say something to me, it makes sense, and we go with it. Just so like that whole thing about the gold.
Yeah, Laurie, you go. Every time I go to the seaside in different places, and you see the waves are always coming at you, parallel to you. You stand on the beach, you look out to the ocean, and the waves come in more or less parallel. You never see the waves going across, from left to right. So I'm wondering why that is. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I would say that would have to be the shape of the seafloor angling up to the land, that the water is following, going toward the land. And so that's why it's lapping at. I have seen it blowing kind of sideways, make the waves go a little bit sideways. But that would be my automatic explanation is.
And where do you think the tide goes when it goes out? Because where I am now, the tide can go out over a mile.
Well, that's a good question, and I've pondered that many times myself. Does it bulge up in the center and that sucks it out from the edge of the bathtub, so to speak? Or is there some place where it goes down into and pulls it away from the beach, from the shorelines? It could be either. Maybe there's some place in the Bermuda Triangle and someplace else where, magnetism pulls it in one way or another. It seems to be, from what they say, and you'd have to do a lot of research on your own to investigate, is there a direct correlation with the moon? Because, tides happen on the side of Earth where the moon isn't. And they happen in timed intervals, low tide, high tide. So, that's supposed to be about the moon being on the other side of the globe versus on this side of the globe, blah, blah. I don't buy into any of that, only because I haven't tested it. And because they lie about everything else, I have to question it too. But the idea of that there is a sea level at every shore, and whatever land comes up out of the ground is based on sea level plus elevation. How they base the elevation of a mountain in the middle of the United States, 1,500 miles away from a coastline, as this elevation above sea level, it kind of boggles the mind. Okay, right? Because sea level obviously changes with tides, but they use the word mean sea level, which is an average. But it's not only that they're supposedly measuring that around a curved surface of a globe, but if you set it by flat, so then you go, oh, that's right. They use it's not a sextant. What's that other thing? Theodolite, to gauge the height of something. But I mean, again, it just every time you start thinking about one of these kind of things, it creates a question in your mind, and then there's another thing I don't really know, so I have to question it. I mean, and it's endless now, and it will be endless for the rest of my life. Where before, I was caught up in what's on TV tonight, and where are we having Christmas dinner this year, and other life mysteries. Versus now, I don't give a shit about any of that stuff anymore. It's nothing but a distraction to me from trying to figure out all the answers to all these other things. Is it, am I obsessed? No, absolutely not. I've never really been obsessed about anything in my life, person, place, or thing, but I'm a curious person, you know. I would have been the kid who crawled down the hallway and stuck my finger in the light socket just to see what the hell that is. And that's why we had those things in all the light sockets. I mean, the wall outlets when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I have spent half my life in a playpen because I was always out investigating. So, but at the end of the day, you know, in review of 2 years, much has been learned. Much has been learned by some of the people, but most of the people are stuck, I think. And, you know, you don't make friends by saying things like this, but most of the people are stuck with what they heard and what they learned when they walked in the door, when they were handed their flat earth brochure, when you came to the first flat earth party. Okay, however you got there, whether you found a video on YouTube or whether you ran across a blog or some friend's post on Facebook, whatever it was, when you first heard the words flat earth, I don't care how long ago, what you first heard that indoctrinated you, just like when you were a little kid and you went to first grade and they started showing you planets, you know, moving around in the sky and, you know, globe on the teacher's desk and so on and so forth. That is indoctrination, period. That is giving you an idealism, an idea of how it is. And if you don't question it, then you just took that in, went in the memory bank, and then you start just adding on layers of shit after that, right? And that's what's happened with Flat Earth. The same kind of training, the same kind of education or indoctrination has happened. And when someone says, no, that isn't correct, they immediately get defensive and think of you as an attacker or some glober in disguise or a shill or whatever other word they, you know, want to call it, when they can't even defend what they believe with any kind of, you know, proof, because somebody else said it's a proof. Eric Dubay put down these 200 proofs. I've memorized them all. They're good. They're you know, they sound good. Okay. Well, have you seen the ice wall? I mean, have you traveled? How many miles is it? It would be, Lawrence, 70,000 miles around it?
78,000 miles.
78,000 miles. Have you taken a boat and gone 78,000? No, but Captain Cook did. Really? Have you ever looked at the treks, the historical journeys and explorations of Captain Cook? Have you ever looked it up online? No, but they lie. They make that up. You know, he well, does it matter in all these miles that he traveled that he went all the way up the coast of here to the north and came back down the coast over here, and you're adding those miles as the miles that he traveled only around Antarctica? Really? 3 times, 3 expeditions, none of which he went around the ice wall, totally around the ice wall, because there is no ice wall. So,
yeah, and Captain Cook's own journal documents the 24 hours of daylight, as do all
yeah, well, we don't want to hear about that part, you know, because that doesn't fit. You know,
no, we can't talk about this.
Can't add that in. That's where the Mandela effect came in, and they changed everything. Okay, you know. Hold on a second here, because I got one for you. Let's see here. Midnight, February 17th, page 33, 4th paragraph. Page 33. Okay. By the way, for you at home, this is Alfred. Is this in reverse to you? Or just to me? Okay, this is Alfred Lansing, Endurance. Alfred Lansing's the author. It's called Endurance, Shackleton's incredible voyage. Okay. And this book was written, this fabulous account of Sir Ernest Shackleton's epic adventure recreates one of the most astonishing feats of exploration and human courage ever recorded. In August of 1914, the Endurance set sail for the South Atlantic, the object of the expedition to cross the Antarctic overland. In October 1915, still half a continent away from their intended base, the ship was trapped, then crushed in the ice. For 5 months, Shackleton and his men, drifting on ice packs, were castaways in one of the most savage regions of the world. Alfred Lansing's vivid narrative describes how the men survived after a 1,000-mile voyage in an open boat across the stormiest ocean on the globe, and an overland trek through forbidding glaciers and mountains. The book recounts a harrowing adventure, but ultimately it is the nobility of these men and their indefatigable will to fight back and survive that shines through. This is using not only Shackleton's diary, but all the other men. There was 23 or 27 men also kept diaries, because like, what the hell are you going to do while you're drifting around on an ice pack? So, you know, they had paper and pencils, and they wrote down their diaries. This guy collected the diaries from the families of the people, and some of the diaries were donated to, you know, institutions and museums and so on. And he culminated all of the angles of all the different stories that all these men told of the same voyage. Okay. So you've got this person's perspective and this person's perspective, but the places where they agreed were 24 hours of sunlight in Antarctica, stuck in the ice. What better way to know? Okay. And also the fact that one night they were adrift on an ice pack, not in a ship, not in boats. And the sky was clear, and the purser, whoever the guy is that takes the sextant and finds their location based on the stars, knew exactly where they were. They had a map, and they knew exactly where they were. And the next morning they woke up and they were hundreds of miles back where they started, with the flow going the opposite way. So, in other words, Pac-Man. But if you don't know about Pac-Man, you would read right over that and fluff that over and go, wow, that's mysterious. There's no way they traveled they didn't have their sails up. It goes on and on. But until you actually read accounts of real diaries, instead of repeating dogma that somebody else told you that's mythological, how would you ever know the truth versus the fact versus fiction? So this is, you know, it's not verifying something I already believed. I believed the way you did. I believed in that whole Cook thing too. I remember when I first became a flat earther, I was posting Cook's journeys and talking about the diaries and all of that stuff, and the ice wall and the dome and everything else, until all of a sudden I really started to question. Lawrence and I both. That was the thing that brought us together, was we started to question Robotham in general, and Robotham's model, and then the Gleason map, and then down the road we went. So yes, it's hundreds of hours of videos that we have under our belt. Do we expect anybody to listen to them? Well, let me give you some information, Lawrence, that is interesting. There are people that have a website, flatearthconspiracy.com, and on that website you can message me, and I get the messages forwarded, because my boyfriend Jimmy is good about that, and I don't log into the site every day to check the messages, so they get forwarded to me. And you wouldn't believe how many people write me and say, I listened to your podcasts. I've listened to all of them. Okay. And my, I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of listening. But you've got people like overland truckers who download MP3 and listen to our podcasts without watching the videos. And if you Google Flat Earth Podcast, we're the only ones on iTunes that you can download, unless you want to listen to maybe something here or there that comes from the Flat Earth Society. And once you start listening, it's like listening to talk radio or any other kind of thing. So we're pretty close to like 1.5 million downloads and listens from people who just generally interested in the direction the conversation goes. So is it boring sometimes? Probably, I'm sure. And do we rattle on sometimes? Absolutely we do. But there's definitely a method to our madness, and that is to question everything, including all of the accepted flat earth stuff.
Yeah, I know. And when we talked about, you mentioned Captain Cook, it's amazing where, these individuals who've been in flat earth a long time and are sticking to the same old stories, they selectively take bits from the likes of Captain Cook, but the bits that don't fit their story, they never mention them at all. So, they wouldn't accept that Captain Cook talked about the 24 hours and the midnight sun, but they will accept that he went on these very long journeys. Which
I actually have heard people. I've actually heard people say that he talks about the midnight sun, and then they will agree that on one of the expeditions he was at the north, and that's what when he was talking about the midnight sun.
Journeys is like going down the side of South America. That isn't going around an ice wall, is it? I mean, that's how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, I know. But of course, that. Oh, really? You're going to accept Wikipedia for a map of Captain Cook's journey? Really? How many sources do we need to cite? How many comparative websites who have a vested interest in reporting the truth? Would anybody give a damn about Captain Cook's journeys if Wikipedia was the only source of the information? But it's interesting that you're using Captain Cook's stories to support your ice wall, but yet Wikipedia is not an okay site. Okay, fine. And go to 10 sites with maps of Captain Cook's journeys. Are all of those not okay too, because they all report the same thing? Because they're all reporting the same thing. So is it all wrong? Well, then if it's all wrong, then why are you using them to support your ice wall for? You see the logic here? It's not working.
Yeah, they won't use that kind of logic because it doesn't fit their story.
Well, I mean, it's an if then, that's all. If you're going to use Captain Cook, then you have to accept everything he said. Or if he said something erroneous that he witnessed, then find somebody who counters what he said and decide which one of these two people you believe.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but if let's just extrapolate on that for a second, okay? Somebody's on trial for murdering someone, okay? And they're going to get the death penalty if they're found guilty. And there is all kinds of circumstantial evidence that says that this person did this, okay? But there's missing evidence that is possible proof that he did not do it, but that evidence is not on the table. Now we bring in eyewitness testimony, all right? And me and Lawrence are the eyewitnesses. Now, Lawrence wasn't even there, but Lawrence has a story because he's one of those people who loves to make up stuff about stuff, all right? And I was there, but I had just come out of the corner pub and had 3 drinks of bourbon. All right. Now, Lawrence is going to tell one story, and his is completely made up. And I'm going to tell another story, and mine might be boggled a little bit by, alcohol. But one of us is going to be the one that the jury is going to believe. Now, I'm pretty demonstrative and emotional and intense. Okay. And Lawrence is just matter of fact and, methodic. So I'm going to get up there and I'm going to tell this story, and I'm going to add, and the temperature was 68 degrees and there was a car over there and it was yellow, and I'm going to add, I'm going to tell all this stuff. And Lawrence is going to tell this methodic story of, he did it and I saw him and he had on a green jacket, and I go, wait a minute. No, he didn't. It was red. Well, it was dark. You see where I'm going here? But this guy's life is on the line, and Flat Earth's life is not on the line here. So it doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to win or lose. The problem is that we've invested, all of us who are flat earthers, we've invested our reputation, our, place in our families, in our friends, our Facebook pages. We've posted about flat earth. Kind of, sort of, your life is on the line, because at some point this is either going to come out to be true or it's going to be debunked. If my life is on the line and I'm at the mercy of the debunkers, then I'm going to make damn sure that they don't catch me at believing anything that I haven't already looked into and thought through and investigated. Okay. Because I could go, to figurative jail if I'm wrong. And here's all these people out there who listen to other people's version of the story, and they, oh yeah, that sounds really good. I believe them versus believing you, even though they have no evidence whatsoever, or their evidence is completely made up and repeated. You see where I'm going? I mean, that's a lot of talking to just say you got to learn not only who to trust, but why you trust them, and be able to verify. Now, if my whole story falls apart because somebody goes to the airport at the town where this happened and says, where they keep diligent records of temperature and rainfall and wind direction and wind speed and all that kind of stuff, and they go, she couldn't have been there. It was 90 degrees that day. And she's talking about it being 68. That just threw everything out the window that she just said. So now I believe Lawrence. So this is what you have to go through, not even just about flat earth, about politics, about religion, about every one of our belief systems. You either don't care, in that case, you're over there, it doesn't matter, you don't care. But if you care, you have to prove or investigate, or at least disprove all of this information that's coming into you, or you might as well just not care and be a glober, because it's a hell of a lot less work. You already know all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's
Laurie, I'm going to tell people a little story now.
Okay.
I don't know that I've told this one to you, but it's to do with temperature, really. I mean, I was on my holidays, and on the beach, it was quite cool because there was a lovely breeze, and the temperature, if you looked on the website, it would say the temperature was about 27, 28 degrees C. But back at the hotel, we've got a balcony, and the temperature there reminded me of a time that I was on holiday quite close to where you are. I'd gone to Florida with my kids for a couple of weeks. And anyways, this was just after 9/11, and plane came in, and it took a good hour to get through customs. And the American customs was really like the Gestapo. They were doing me a big favor letting me come there for a holiday, and I was pretty tired anyway, because it was about a 10-hour flight, and I'd booked a car to go about Florida. I'd booked a hotel on International Drive, nothing fancy or anything, and I flew into Sanford Airport, I think it was, and I'd hired a car, and it was the Alamo car compound. Anyway, found my way over to the car. It was really hot, and I goes into the guy, and I'd ordered a saloon with a boot and things like that, and the guy, I can't do a very good American accent. The guy says, "Well, sir, would you like to upgrade to one of these big fancy Jeeps, V12, for an extra $170? I says, "I'm not paying that." I says, "I'll give you $17. Anyway, so somehow he says, "Yeah, you can have it for $17 more." So I got upgraded to this fabulous Jeep. It was brand new. It had just got the delivery. It got about 50 miles on the clock. So I'm in the compound, and gets in this Jeep, and the temperature, they've got a thermometer in there. The temperature was, it was about 115 degrees. I've never known anything so hot. So we had to wind down all the windows. Anyway, I'm struggling to get out of this compound because this Jeep was an automatic. I've never driven an automatic in my life. And the car was bumping and starting. Anyway, this guy came over, this security, the guy said, "Just imagine you've got your left foot glued to the ground, and you use your right foot. One's the brake, one's to go." So, well, I thought, fine. Anyway, so I managed to get out of the compound in a fashion, and I'm on the freeway or the motorway, whatever, that runs alongside the airport. But they'd renumbered the junctions. So I'm driving along, and I'm not sure whether it's the old junction or the new junction. So I decided to slow down on this freeway. And my foot went for the clutch, which is what you have with a British car. We do have a few automatics over here, but most of them are a gear stick and a clutch. And my foot went down on the brake, and I was going at 70 miles an hour. It's the fastest I've ever stopped in my life. I went from 70 to 0 in about 2 seconds, and my heart stopped. I looked into the wing mirror, and I thought something's going to hit the back of me. This car got the brakes like a Formula One car. It stopped on a sixpence in about 2. So went from 70 to 0 in about 2 seconds. Looked into the back of into the mirror. Bam! This big white Lincoln Continental taxi smashed into the back of this Jeep that I was driving. This big, huge Jeep. And there was wreckage all over the freeway. It wrote off the front end of this Lincoln.
Oh my God.
Everywhere. And the driver of it was a woman. She probably must have thought she'd fallen asleep. One minute she's driving along, and the next minute, a car's in bits all over the motorway. Anyway, they got the car off. So they came and towed it all off onto this grassy bank. And along comes the police. And he goes, "Well, so what exactly happened here?" So I said, "Well, I slowed down a little bit, stopped to check the route." And so I'm writing all my full statement. Of course, because they ran into the back of me, it wasn't my fault. Anyway, so I had to sign this statement. And this guy was like something out of Burt Reynolds. What's that? The movies he did, the copy, the guy with the funny glasses and, and his puffed out chest.
Right.
Anyway, so we're filling all the statement in. And it was Officer Crapper who signed the statement. I can't believe it. Officer Crapper.
Chances?
Anyway, so the guy said, yes, sir, we've had a lot of trouble with that taxi company. They're a bunch of hillbillies, and we've had a lot of trouble with them. And so a new taxi came along, and all these passengers the boot of the car was okay because it was the front end that got written away. So they transferred all the suitcases into the boot of a replacement taxi. And then the taxi reversed into a lamppost. and smashed the back end of the car in. And I'm leaning over the chatting away to this police officer. He's, you know, and he was just telling me what a bunch of hillbillies they were. What did I tell you? He said.
Oh my God. So that's like almost like one of those.
I was off scot-free because my fault. And, you know, and this Jeep was virtually unmarked. There was a little scratch on the tow bar or whatever on the back.
Right.
But this other car.
And so were there any witnesses to any of this that said that, you know, Lawrence slept on the brakes and it's all his fault?
Well, if it had been busy traffic, I would have caused a huge pileup.
Yeah.
So experience of America was causing an accident on the motorway, but it wasn't my fault according to the law.
Wild story.
And it was Officer Crapper, you know.
Now we can go down in history as being making videos where we just talk about stuff. See, you just did it, Lawrence.
You know, I did the experiment on the jam.
Yeah.
Well,
is that still going? As Lawrence walks away suddenly after this motor car freeway story, he goes to get his jam, leaving me sitting here.
I have to tell the truth, so I wouldn't manipulate this thing. So this one says, hate, you make me sick, I will kill you. This is strawberry jam, and it's been in
Hold it still, for crying out loud.
In the pot, okay. And if you want to look at this jam, this is the hate one. The jam is all intact. There's no, you can see that the jam is fine.
All right.
And the love one, which says love, gratitude, and thank you. The love one has got
mold.
See that? The love one has got the mold this time, so it doesn't work with jam.
Doesn't work with jam.
It's not protecting the jam.
So from now on, we got to have preservatives in the jam, and writing love words on there is not going to preserve it.
It's not going to work, unfortunately.
Interesting. All right. Well, we've done a couple hours, and thank you for that interesting story. And I think we will probably be able to be back on a regular schedule from now on. We were off for a month, so this was our version of 2 years of review. We did get off topic a couple of times, but that's what we do, and we'll continue to progress on our investigations into.
Laurie, I forgot to add just one thing.
What?
If people would be interested in reading that book called Endurance, don't read it if you're a vegan, because they end up eating all the dogs and the horses. And,
oh yeah, they eat the dogs, and they have to eat all these seals and penguins because there was nothing else to eat. Yeah. There you go. Okay, there you go. How do you be a vegan in Antarctica? It trapped on the ice. Not possible. They did eat some seaweed. They did find some seaweed come floating by now and then, and they did kelp type seaweed, and they pulled it up and did enjoy eating that. But most of their diet for over 6 months was penguin, seal. They enjoyed the seal blubber sliced off like bacon about more than anything, because they got a lot of heat energy from digesting it. Helped keep them warm. And so they ate seal and penguin, and they caught a shark, I think, once. And so it was totally a meat diet. Once their rations ran out, that they were able to salvage off of the Endurance before it sunk into the sea. The ice crunched it to death. Is what happened to the Endurance. It was trapped in the ice, and the floes kept pressuring on the sides of the ship until it splintered the sides, and then they offloaded all the stuff, the rations and everything, and it stayed stuck in the ice and didn't sink until the ice floe started to break up a little bit. And so they were able to go back and forth to the ship and get more rations and stuff, but they had to get in the water to get to some of these things. But anyway, it is one of the best reads that I've read in a long time about endurance, which was an awesome name for the ship because they ultimately ended up having to endure about as hard of hardships as any story I've ever read. But on top of that, the guy who wrote the book did, like I said, get as many of the diaries of the original men, the 27 or 23, I can't remember. I won't look it up right now, and compare them and make a fuller story, because some people are more interested in writing about things than other people. But don't bother. I mean, you can watch the video. There's some video documentaries about it, but it is nothing like reading the reality of the book in the book. So the other book that I am recommending anybody, this is a must read if you are a truther or a flat earther or someone who's, when we were talking about the fiat currency earlier and so on and so forth, you have to read The Creature from Jekyll Island from start to finish. It is not about a creature. It's not about a monster. It is about the creation of the Federal Reserve System, of central bank system in America that ended up being the central banking system of the world. There's only a few countries left on earth that do not have central banks, and those are all the ones that we're constantly hearing about America going to war with, like North Korea and Syria and Iran, Cuba. So please download it in PDF form and read it, and you will be as wide awake about the control system of the world based on the monetary system, and you will understand more about why we were talking about gold earlier. And once you read it, you can't go back. It's kind of like becoming a flat earther. Once you understand how fiat currency works and the Federal Reserve System and the debt structure that we're all in based on fake money, then you will never come back from that. And it is the biggest wake-up call anyone can have. So with that, I've enjoyed our conversation, Lawrence, as always, and we'll be back next week. We have been doing these podcasts, the last couple of ones. We've just been recording them and then uploading them and making them public on the channel, rather than doing them live with chat and all that, because we haven't really known when we were ahead of time when we were going to do it. So I'm not sure whether we're going to go back to that former format or not, or if we're just keep doing it this way. We do get less views on YouTube, but so is everybody else right now in Flat Earth. All the views are going down. But most of our listeners are podcast listeners. So shout out to you guys. Okay. That's all I have, Lawrence. Parting words? Yeah,
well, it's good to be back, and I'm sure we'll have to try and think of something interesting to cover.
Okay.
We make a habit of telling you something new every time.
Okay, awesome. See you next week, Lawrence.
Yep, see you next week.